Merci Suzy, bonjour tout le monde, hello everyone. Salutations tout d'abord à Kirstin de Food Banks Canada, Laurie from Second Harvest, Tommy du Club des petits déjeuners du Canada, Meredith from Community Food Centers Canada, John and Glenda from Salvation Army et Jean-François de la Tablée des chefs. Et à tous les représentants et les bénévoles qui sont avec nous aujourd'hui, merci d'être là. First and foremost, I want to sincerely thank all of you for the tremendous work you did this past year as the pandemic continues to worsen food insecurity across Canada. As we head into the holiday season, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are incredibly grateful for the work you do to help those in need. Je veux tout d'abord vous remercier tous pour le travail extraordinaire que vous faites tout au long de l'année. On a vu, entre autres, avec l'inflation et la hausse des prix des aliments, que la pandémie continue de toucher les personnes les plus vulnérables de notre pays. Celles qui étaient déjà en situation d'insécurité alimentaire, mais aussi beaucoup d'autres qui ont été frappées à la porte des banques alimentaires pour la première fois cette année. Je sais que vous avez dû redoubler d'efforts pour répondre à la demande qui augmente. Vous avez trouvé de nouveaux partenariats, de nouvelles sources de financement et il y a eu des initiatives vraiment remarquables. Je pense entre autres au concert Stronger Together, Tous ensemble, qui a permis de recueillir plus de 9 millions de dollars pour Banque alimentaire Canada. Et l'été dernier, le programme Après la cloche, qui a fourni 30% de plus de sacs de denrées à des enfants dans 160 communautés partout au pays. Avec la Tablée des chefs, on a aussi vu plusieurs exemples de solidarité et de collaboration entre les organismes de sécurité alimentaire et les chefs cuisiniers pour la préparation et la distribution de repas. Nous remercions tous les chefs impliqués, dont Robert Bartley à Vancouver, le chef des Canucks, qui a fait plus de 800 000 repas depuis le début du projet, et Baptiste Peupion du Reine-Élisabeth de Québec, qui a rendu plus de 500 000 repas, qui en est rendu à plus de 500 000 repas. Quant au Club des petits déjeuners, il rejoint chaque jour plus de 500 000 enfants dans plus de 3 000 programmes en milieu scolaire et communautaire au pays. We have seen some remarkable food security initiatives over the pandemic. For Second Harvest, 2021 has been another big year, with 110,000 meals provided a day on average, and 41 million pounds of food rescued and redistributed to over 6,400 nonprofit programs across Canada. With the help of federal emergency food security funds, the Community Food Centers Canada launched their Good Food Access Fund grant program for communities across Canada. This fund is giving access to food for low-income community members who struggle with increased costs and the physical barriers they face because of lack of retail or transportation available. Community food centers also provided helicopter drops of food to First Nation communities impacted by the BC floods. And when the pandemic closed community meal centers, Salvation Army sprung into action, delivering meals on the streets and takeout meals to people experiencing vulnerability. And thanks to the emergency food security funding, they are now delivering food directly to the residences of seniors and other individuals who can't leave because of the pandemic. Bravo to you all. These are only some examples of the amazing impact that each of your organizations and each food bank that you support has had in communities across our country. And for that, we are very grateful to you. Notre gouvernement vient continuer à vous appuyer jusqu'à la fin de la pandémie, surtout à l'approche de la période des fêtes, où la demande augmente encore plus. Aujourd'hui, je suis heureuse d'annoncer l'ajout de 30 millions de dollars au Fonds d'urgence pour la sécurité alimentaire, qui représente maintenant un investissement total de 330 millions de dollars. Comme depuis le début, l'investissement sera réparti entre Banque alimentaire Canada, Second Harvest, Centre communautaire d'alimentation du Canada, le Club des petits déjeuners du Canada, l'Armée du salut et la Tablée des chefs. Et comme d'habitude, ces organisations vont redistribuer les fonds à travers leurs réseaux respectifs à travers tout le pays. Nos partenaires contribueront aussi à redistribuer une partie des surplus de pommes de terre de l'île du Prince-Édouard qui sont d'excellente qualité, mais qui subissent en ce moment une fermeture du marché américain. Jusqu'à maintenant, le Fonds d'urgence pour la sécurité alimentaire a soutenu plus de 5000 initiatives locales partout au Canada, y compris 1100 initiatives qui appuient directement des communautés autochtones. Des initiatives très variées, allant de l'achat de nourriture et de biens essentiels à l'embauche de personnel supplémentaire, à la mise en place de mesures de distanciation pour protéger les bénévoles et les travailleurs. You can count on our government to keep supporting Canada's food banks and local food organizations. It's essential that they can offer the services Canadians rely on to feel safe and healthy, especially during the holiday season. Today, I am pleased to announce a $30 million top-up for the Emergency Food Security Fund, which brings our total funding to $330 million. Just as we did since the beginning, funding will be divided among Food Banks Canada, Second Harvest, Breakfast Club of Canada, Community Food Centres Canada, Salvation Army, and La Tablée des Chefs. These partners will continue their important work to distribute it to thousands of local food organizations across Canada. Our partners will contribute to the distribution of surplus potatoes from Prince Edward Island, which are excellent quality, but currently face border restrictions with the US. Since it was launched in the opening months of the pandemic, the Emergency Food Security Fund has supported more than 5,000 local food initiatives across Canada, with over 1,100 initiatives directly supporting Indigenous organizations and communities. The fund has helped to serve safe, healthy, and culturally diverse meals to millions of people in Canada. Our government is committed to improving access to safe and nutritious food for vulnerable people in Canada. This is part of the vision we created in the Food Policy for Canada, launched in 2019. But more help is always needed, and I invite Canadians to set up with your own holiday donation to any of these fantastic organizations. En terminant, j'invite tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes qui le peuvent à faire un don à une banque alimentaire de leur région à l'occasion des fêtes. Et vous pouvez compter sur notre gouvernement pour continuer de renforcer la sécurité alimentaire partout au pays. C'est l'un des objectifs de notre politique alimentaire pour le Canada et ça fait partie de notre vision pour un système alimentaire plus inclusif, plus durable et plus résilient. Thank you all. Merci.
Thank you very much, Minister Bibeau. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. I will now turn things over to Kirstin Beardsley, Chief Network Services Officer of Food Banks Canada. Je cède donc la parole maintenant à Kirstin Beardsley, chef des services sociaux de Banque Alimentaire Canada.
Thank you. And I wanted to take this opportunity to once again thank you, Minister Bibeau and the Government of Canada, for your support on behalf of Food Banks Canada. These funds are very much needed and very much appreciated, as is the ongoing recognition of the hard work that food bankers do to support those in need in their communities. These funds show that we are not alone in doing this important work and highlight the continued need for us all to work together to address food insecurity. As our recent hunger count report showed, the need for food banks is climbing across the country, and the months ahead will not be easy ones. I wanted to quickly share a note we received from Betty Lou Suter, who runs the food bank in St. Catharines, Ontario. She sent this after she received a previous round of government funding. Community Care in St. Catharines and Thorold just received our funding through the Emergency Food Security Fund, for which we are extremely grateful. It could not have come at a better time. Our numbers have escalated significantly over the past few months, and we are seeing unprecedented people walk through our doors. Some weeks it's actually double over the same time period last year, but the average has been 67% higher, which is concerning to say the least. I can assure you these funds will go a long way in enabling our clients live with dignity and purpose. Full tummies should not be a luxury, as we all agree. I know that sentiment is shared by food bankers across this country. So on behalf of the Food Bank Network and those we serve, we thank you once again for this funding and for your continued support.
Thank you very much, Kirstin. I will now turn things over to Tommy Kulczyk, General Manager of Breakfast Clubs of Canada. Je cède donc maintenant la parole à Tommy Kulczyk, Directeur général des clubs des petits déjeuners du Canada.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Madame la ministre. C'est toujours un plaisir d'assister à une rencontre où la totalité des personnes qui sont présentes contribuent à améliorer la qualité de vie des enfants et des familles partout au Canada tout au long de l'année. Alors, merci de l'invitation. On behalf of the children, I would like to thank the federal government for the additional emergency funding announcement today. As the repercussions of the pandemic continue to have a significant impact across Canada, this funding will be used to meet urgent needs over the coming months. Adapting to restriction linked to the pandemic, the club and its networks of partners are offering even more innovative and collaborative food program by working with schools and community organizations. We are so grateful that two government departments, including agriculture and agri-food, have made a commitment to continue to strengthen Canada's food system by developing a national school feeding policy and working on a national program. Minister Bibeau, the Breakfast Club have been around for 27 years. We work with partners across the country in different sectors. We are your ally in this project. Today, vous l'avez mentionné tantôt, Madame la ministre, grâce à des partenaires exceptionnels, nous avons la capacité de rejoindre au-delà de 500 000 enfants à chaque matin dans 3 000 différents programmes, et ça partout au Canada, dans les écoles ou dans les organisations communautaires. We are present as well in 260 Indigenous communities. However, the number of Canadian children and youth who are at risk at coming to school hungry is growing. We are therefore extremely grateful to receive these funds from the Government of Canada, as they will help us meet the growing demand. In fact, we have seen a dramatic increase in attendance and demands for breakfast program in the past year. And over 600 schools are currently on a waiting list to benefit from one of these programs. With the strong support of government partners and donors, the club works every day to reach as many children as possible across the country. There is still a long way to go to ensure that hunger does not prevent any child from learning and succeeding. But it's by working together that we can make a difference and help all children in Canada reach their full potential. I mentioned it earlier before we started this meeting, but there was 3 or 4 key words during the past year. It was agility, flexibility, and working together. That's why we're going to achieve all our objectives. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish all of you and your loved ones health for the new year. Take the time to rest during this holiday period. Canadian children and family needs all of us more than ever in 2022. Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. I will now turn things over to Laurie Nikkel, CEO of Second Harvest. Je cède donc maintenant la parole à Laurie Nikkel, PDG de Deuxième Récolte.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for this opportunity and for the injection of much needed money into the charitable sector through the Emergency Food Security Fund. At Second Harvest, Canada's largest food rescue and delivery organization, we are keenly aware of the struggles of Canadians. Our latest research identified that over 6 million Canadians have visited one of over the 61,000 charities, schools, nonprofits, or food hubs to access food since the start of the COVID pandemic. And with food inflation on the rise, especially in the healthy fresh categories, groceries and healthy food are becoming further and further out of reach for so many. And many Canadians, for the first time ever, are having to access emergency food services in their communities. So on behalf of Second Harvest and the over 4.2 million Canadians we were able to support last year, I would like to thank the Government of Canada, Minister Bibeau, the Ministry of Agriculture and Agri-Food, and all the incredible hardworking and dedicated staff for their leadership in investing much needed funding into the charitable sector again. This is a really difficult time, and as we head into the holidays, this is an incredibly welcome announcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now turn things over to John Marie, Lieutenant Colonel, Territorial Secretary for Communications at the Salvation Army. Je cède donc maintenant la parole à John Marie, Lieutenant-colonel, secrétaire territorial des communications à l'Armée du Salut.
Thank you very much, Minister. On behalf of the Salvation Army, let us once again express our sincere thanks and appreciation for this good news story today and for the continued support of the Government of Canada Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in response to the needs of the pandemic, and I think most importantly, Canadians across the country. Grateful to all of our colleagues and partner agencies on here today, because I think, Minister, in your remarks, you said we're certainly stronger together. And I think that's one of the things that this pandemic has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate. So grateful to all of our friends and colleagues here today. I had opportunity, Minister, just last week to tour the BC Interior to see the Salvation Army's operations there, from Kamloops right down through Penticton. And I heard many stories from not only employees, volunteers, and some of those that we serve as well, how important the investment from the Emergency Food Security Fund has been and continues to be. And not only did I hear some of the stories, but I also met some of the people and some of the partners who we have in the Indigenous community, some of the other food bank partners that we have in Penticton and West Kelowna, and as well as Salmon Arm. And so just grateful for this opportunity and to see how working together, we are together positively impacting the lives of Canadians, not only as a group and teams here together, but certainly in the 400 communities that the Salvation Army serves. Let me just share a terrific quote, I think, from one of our employees, as she shared with Major Glenda Davis, who's also on our call today. As a result of the funding, we've been able to provide nutritionally well-balanced food hampers to those in need. All of our guests have been so thrilled with the hampers that they have received and have commented on feeling appreciated and cared for. And I think that's a tremendous message and a wonderful sentiment to conclude my remarks. So thank you very much, Minister. Grateful to you for your leadership and for that of the Government of Canada in these very challenging days. God bless you.
Thank you very much. I will now turn things over to Jean-François Archambault, General Director and Founder of la Tablée des Chefs. Je cède maintenant la parole à Jean-François Archambault, Directeur général et fondateur de la Tablée des Chefs.
Bonjour, merci Madame Bibeau pour ce nouveau soutien, ce nouveau support. Ce projet de la Tablée des cuisines solidaires est arrivé à un moment où, en mars 2020, toute l'industrie de la restauration et de l'hôtellerie et toutes les conventions et étaient arrêtées ou presque arrêtées. Et donc, on a pu mobiliser des centaines de cuisiniers à préparer des repas pour l'aide alimentaire. Et ces cuisiniers-là ont été, malgré la situation qu'ils vivaient, et malgré la situation des fermiers et de toute l'industrie alimentaire qui distribuaient tous ces aliments-là dans le secteur de l'hospitalité, se retrouvaient à plat. Et ils ont retourné ces aliments-là vers l'aide alimentaire aussi. Donc, on a mis ça tout ensemble et ça a permis aujourd'hui de cuisiner plus de 4 millions de repas à travers le Canada, à travers des partenariats, comme vous avez parlé tantôt du chef Robert Bartley. Chef Bartley in Vancouver with the Canucks hospitality team and management was able to keep 15 of his cooks through the wage subsidy. That's really important too. And was able to prepare over 800,000 meals from October 2020 to just now when hockey season started again. And we see that it's so fragile. C'est tellement fragile. Tout ce qu'on vit en ce moment, Laurie, you mentioned it, c'est préoccupant, mais l'industrie et la solidarité de l'industrie alimentaire qui est derrière nous à travers les dons alimentaires, à travers les partenariats qu'on a mis en place pour rendre ces repas-là accessibles, et toute l'industrie des chefs est derrière nous pour poursuivre le travail qui reste à faire parce qu'il en reste à faire. Et donc, tous les fonds qui seront réinjectés dans le programme des cuisines solidaires servira à rendre des repas accessibles à travers tout le Canada et de garder ces chefs actifs. Mais je vous le répète, les subventions salariales et le wage subsidy permet aussi au programme des cuisines solidaires d'être actifs parce que vous couvrez une bonne partie puis vous permettez surtout à cette industrie de garder leurs cuisiniers. Vous savez, il y a une pénurie de cuisiniers incroyable en ce moment à travers tout le pays. Si on est capable de les garder au fourneau pour l'aide alimentaire, en partie, c'est une façon aussi de combler les besoins qu'on vit en ce moment. Donc, merci beaucoup. Je souhaite une joyeuse fête à tous et restez en santé et en sécurité. Merci énormément.
Merci beaucoup, M. Archambault. I will now turn things over to Meredith Hayes, Senior Manager of Community Food Centers Canada. Je cède donc maintenant la parole à Meredith Hayes, Directrice principale des Centres alimentaires communautaires du Canada.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Community Food Centers Canada, we want to thank Minister Bibeau, along with the Government of Canada, for the continued support for emergency food funding and the announcement of these additional funds. Having personally had the privilege to review hundreds of the applications that came in over the course of the last year and a half, I've been uplifted by the thoughtfulness and nimbleness and commitment of the incredible staff and community members who work with limited resources to try to bring dignified access to food, who are up against significant systemic barriers to afford and access food to feed themselves and their families. The energy and brilliance and will is very clearly there to find solutions that bring people together, create a sense of community and connection while seeking to address unbelievably difficult circumstances, all while struggling to do that under the stress of working under the pressures of this global health crisis. It's been a challenging couple of years, and these funds have been integral to providing some much needed financial support to these phenomenal organizations. Grantees have shared that these funds are meeting short-term needs for community members of all ages, from families unable to afford formula and baby food to seniors who are having to make choices between paying their heating bills and buying groceries. As well as looking at having some control over purchasing power in communities impacted by unforgivably high costs of food in northern and remote flying communities. It's meant that food hampers and produce boxes and meals can be prepared with more dignified balance of fresh and nourishing ingredients. We've also heard that communities from coast to coast, where the majority of the population are seniors, are sometimes hours away from the closest retail stores. So these funds have provided an opportunity to have coordinated local approaches to getting food in to those low-income seniors and improve access to food directly. Having a source of funding like this continues to allow us to support hunting, fishing, and harvesting country foods within First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities, alongside covering some of the added costs related to transportation, as well as seeing that these funds can go as far as we can move them. Leadership within these organizations continue to call on a more integrated approach. And so we appreciate the opportunity and ongoing conversation as we look for solutions to the systemic causes of inequity that have led to food insecurity impacting women, Indigenous, Black, people of color, and people with disabilities at disproportionate rates. This grant program has brought forward so many important themes around national supports needed to invest in income supports, decent jobs, affordable housing, the important, incredible movement on national childcare program, addressing rising utility costs, and innovative ways to stabilize food costs so that the cost of feeding families doesn't continue to rise at a rate that outpaces our ability to afford these foods. So we are so heartened by the opportunity and moved to be able to share some of the stories that have come from these incredible organizations and communities from coast to coast to coast. And we really appreciate this opportunity and this further investment in funds. Thank you so much, and we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you as we address these important systemic issues that people are facing.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you all very much. We will now proceed to the question and answer session. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions et réponses. A reminder that this virtual question and answer session is reserved for members of the media. Reporters will need to identify their name and affiliation in the chat box to ask a question. Those using a phone line will need to press *3 to raise their hand. One question and one follow-up will be permitted. And don't forget that if you experience any issues, please mention it in the chat or you can reach the media relations team after the call. Je rappelle que cette période de questions et réponses est réservée aux médias. Les journalistes doivent inscrire leur nom et affiliation médiatique dans la messagerie chat pour poser une question. Ceux et celles qui utilisent un téléphone doivent faire *3 pour lever la main. Une question et un suivi par média seront permis. Et si vous éprouvez des difficultés, n'oubliez pas de le signaler dans le chat pendant l'événement ou vous pouvez tout simplement écrire à l'équipe des relations médias après l'appel. So we have one first question from Dean Thorpe from CFCW in Edmonton. Mr. Thorpe, would you like me to read your question or would you like to ask it yourself?
I can certainly ask the question, Minister. First of all, Merry Christmas to everyone as well as we head towards that big day. Minister, I wanted to know, what is the government doing, and maybe some of the other groups can respond as well, in working with grocery store chains to lessen the amount of, they call shrink or waste that they generate on a daily basis? I know some have, but are efforts underway to make them all respond to this?
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you too. You know that under our food policy for Canada, we have one initiative and one objective is to reduce food waste. And we have launched earlier this year 2 challenges. One, to find new initiatives or around better business model to decrease the level of food waste, and the other one is around the technologies. And also in our platform, you will see that we are committed to put in place a fund, a specific fund to reduce food waste. This is one of our objective under the food policy, and the different programs are rolling out, starting with the challenges, but there will be more to come as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a question from Neil Billinger from CGWW Red Radio Saskatoon. Neil, you can go ahead. Okay, so I have the question here. Minister Bibeau, question for the charities. Oh, sorry. Question for the charities. Are you seeing more working families using your services? Families using your services?
Well, I could partly answer if you want the first part of the question. Like I said earlier, there's been an increase in demands within our existing programs, sometimes 50 to 100% more child in the schools now or want to benefit from our breakfast program. I mean, the many reasons that we all know, the pandemic has affected a lot of the economic situation for families. And as much as the price of food, we mentioned it, the increase of price of food has an impact on what we do, but definitely since the pandemic. And that's why the support of the government during and since the beginning of this pandemic was essential to cater to the increased demand concerning our program, which is breakfast in the morning. And I'm sure that food banks as well can continue in answering that question.
I was going to mention, we're seeing an increase in families, in particular in large urban settings where the cost of living is really outpacing people's ability, even with the government supports, their ability to pay for essentials like food and housing. So we're seeing, in particular in large urban centers, that families are quite impacted by the job losses around the pandemic and other economic factors.
Somebody else would like to answer Neil's question? Est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre voudrait répondre à la question de Neil?
Sure, John Murray from the Salvation Army. That has also been our experience across the country, as people have hours been reduced, so their salaries have been reduced, the escalation of electricity and other heating costs. And we have seen throughout the pandemic, people who have never come to the Salvation Army for help before, they're first-time users, and that has been significant for them and also for us as an organization. So I think, like all of our colleague charities on this call, I think that we've probably all could give illustration today to the reality of that, not only in urban centers, great point, Kirstin, on that, but certainly in rural and smaller communities as well.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes, go ahead.
No, just to follow up, just what we're hearing is a great concern of, we're seeing the same, a lot of first-time clients, and as clients who maybe were able to make their way through the pandemic with a bit more income, what happens when they start to come back and access all of our services? And that's what we think we're seeing now with numbers like we've seen St. Catherine, 67%.
And we also have a follow-up question from Neil Billinger from CJWW Radio Saskatoon, who's asking, do you keep track of the number of the first-time food bank clients?
In general, yes, we would keep track of clients coming in. We use a similar system to the Salvation Army that does an intake with clients in order to better understand who's using the services, so that we can advocate for social policies that address their long-term needs, so that we can all see the number of people who rely on our services reduced over time.
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions? Oh, yes, we do here. So we have a question from Erica Ibrahim from the Canadian Press, who says, I've heard that an issue with assuring food security is to move away from charitable organizations working in silos. Are steps being taken on this front?
Maybe I can answer. Go ahead. Go ahead, Laurie. I'll complete your answer.
Perfect. Just briefly, the charitable sector is incredibly collaborative. And one of the first things that we did at the beginning of the pandemic was create the Food Rescue Canadian Alliance to get all the charities, industry, government working together. So if there are silos happening, we encourage them to please connect, because we all know the only way we're going to get through this is together.
Yeah, I was going to say we can't do this working alone. We could not have distributed 4 million meals across Canada out of Quebec without the help of partners on this call, but also partners everywhere, food banks members all across Canada, volunteers, and community organization that we've never worked before with, that we now collaborate. So silos are opening up. We can't do this alone. We all realized it and all working in that direction.
I think everybody agrees that the only way we'll achieve our objective, like I said earlier, is by working together. We work with thousands of different partners across the country. At the beginning of the pandemic, the first question we ask ourselves is, how can we reach children wherever they are? And we did, with over 1,000 partners who had the ability to reach children, and respecting obviously the restriction from the different province health-wise, and in innovative ways, some drives through, etc. But the point is that there is no way that anybody can reach all children or families that are going through a pandemic like this and on normal circumstances. So to answer your question, you can't work in silo, and you have to prove that all the organizations that are here presently are probably in link in some kind of way during the year, and specifically since the beginning of this pandemic.
I wanted to share too, we coordinate a network of organizations called Good Food Organizations that are represented by membership in many of these different organizations that are here today. But I think also that the charitable work that happens is often, like, I think it's a third of those organizations are run exclusively by volunteers or one paid staff member. And so I think it's also looking at the solution to this. It doesn't work in silos from organizations, but also just communities and individuals, and the importance of having integrated approaches at municipal, provincial, and national levels. Both, I think the charitable organizations need to work together just to help fill the limited resources that they have to get this work around advocacy and policy solutions done, while they're also addressing emergency issues right on the front lines. And so I think, yeah, we're seeing continued opportunities to integrate and collaborate across different organizations, but also needing those silos to be broken down across so many different sectors as well.
Anybody else would like to add on the question? Erika, would you have a follow-up question? And is there another media who would have a question to ask? So no follow-up questions for Erika. Is there anybody else who would like to have a question? We can leave a couple of seconds before we take one last question. No? Perfect. Well, thank you very much. This is what concludes this press conference. C'est ce qui termine cette conférence de presse. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. Thank you everybody for joining us today for this press conference. Have a good day. Bonne journée.
Merci. Thank you. Thank you all.
Merci tout le monde. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Thank you.